Hi, this is Justice with Tablet Pro, and I'm here with Cameron, aka C Butters, and we're going to be talking about the Z13, which is the 2023 version, and I'm super stoked about it because it is way more powerful than any other tablet that we've had available to us yet. So Cameron did a couple videos on his channel and talked about the two different versions of the Z13.
Yeah, I've got both of those here right now. One is very interesting looking. This is the 4070 version. And then we also have the standard, more conventional version, although it is pretty wild looking itself. That has a 4050, but yeah, RGB window. Pretty interesting devices for sure.
So funny when you look at the two devices and you look at the first one, the 4050 one, like, oh man, that's kind of extreme. And then you see the other one, and then you look at the first one again, you're like, oh, the first one's really tame by comparison.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, who's the boring person with that one? But
Exactly.
otherwise, yeah, it's a pretty extreme unit itself. I like the styling on the 4050, just the regular one.
Yeah, I hear that a lot in the videos that I've posted. You know I mean, this one is just so wild. It's not everybody's cup of tea, and a lot of people are a little upset that they don't have the availability to get a 4070 unless you go for this version.
Yeah,
But as I have some benchmarks to prove, the 4050 is pretty close to the 4060 and 4070. So there are some differences, but
yeah.
it's the 4050 is really good. Is the good thing.
Right. Yeah. We were talking about this and why you have two, why you're such a baller. Like, so I'm
Well,
like, should I buy this
yeah,
other
I
one
got
from
sucked in,
Cameron?
and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden they launched. They weren't even. They didn't even say they were going to do a 4070. They actually just said a 4060, and then all of a sudden there's a 4070 that kind of shows up in like Malaysia or something,
Uh,
and then suddenly it's like available, and yeah. So
you
I
know,
had to I had to get it in because I had to just see what it was about. So
if they had just made it black instead of like shiny, glow in the dark, uh, it would.
yeah, and the funny thing about that is on camera, it almost looks like, oh, it's like a little bit anodized or something like that.
Hmm.
But it's not. It is like, it looks like the shiniest, silveriest metal you've ever seen in person. It's
Yeah.
like it's almost like a mirror. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. It's just like a stealthy ninja design on the one, and then like glitter pop, attention like drawing design on the other one. Everyone look at me. And then but then you
Absolutely.
go, but 32 gigs of RAM and 4070. And you're like, I will be using this by myself most of the time.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for performance per, well, I don't know if performance per weight is a good metric because it is quite a bit heavier with all this metal and
Hmm.
these tabs on the edge, but it is still, very very light and portable for a 4070, and it does have really good, really decent performance.
Yeah, I binge watched a bunch of camera stuff yesterday. So the biggest questions that I think that most of the viewers here want to see is how does it one draw and how does it two game?
Absolutely, and I have some additional kind of benchmarks and things that I've run that maybe I didn't even show in some of my own videos, just to kind of show your viewers what they can expect. Let me open this up. We can address first like the drawing factor
Okay, cool.
to kind of look and see like if there's like jitter happening or how
Mm-hmm.
well you can draw lines and things like that.
Yeah.
Um, so the problem that, well, that I talked about in my video a little bit was, you know, there's lots of different pens when you use a device, and
Mm-hmm.
I have the Microsoft pens on hand because I'm like the Surface guy, and I've been using Surface Pro, so I always, had my Surface Pen, and so with the X13 and the Z13, when I would go to test stuff, and I can demonstrate this here. When you draw on the Asus devices, they still use Microsoft Pen protocol, but it's calibrated just slightly different. They have their own pen, and so when I would do my tests, and it's actually see it skipped right there.
Mm-hmm.
It would skip a lot. You see these jitter lines going on right here.
Right. Yeah.
And I thought, well, it's just the panels, the digitizer's not as good on the Asus ones. I just chalked it up to that because Microsoft Pen is like,
it's supposed
on
to be.
Surface devices is amazing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But if I now have like a real Asus Pen in hand, and I had to basically apologize for this because I've been telling people like, hey, it's not nearly as good, and it's a lot better than what I originally decided. So now if I'm using the correct pen, if we try that same diagonal line here, and I'm leaning over the desk, so it's kind of hard to get an angle on this for the camera, but there are less jitters.
Yeah.
And it just, I don't know what about it, but it is much smoother and easier to write with than the Surface Pen is.
Yeah, and then same diagonal test. Perfect.
And that's still the Surface Pen.
Yeah, and then let's switch to black ink.
Okay.
Yeah, and then same test again.
Now this is the Asus Pen. Is that what we want?
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect. What a huge difference.
That is a huge difference.
Yeah. Can you do the same thing with palm down?
Sure.
And then you can pan the screen up a little bit.
I'll go back to red for the Surface Pen.
Okay.
Palm down.
Great.
Which, that's funny. It almost had less jitters with the palm down on the Surface Pen.
Yeah, it's supposed to be fine.
Okay. Yeah, so there's a version 6, so. Yeah, so it's almost like the Asus Pen. I have to push a little harder. Like if I'm just super light on it,
Yeah.
it does draw very light. Where the Microsoft Pen, it's drawing darker even with the same pressure.
All right, so Cameron, can you demonstrate, both pens here in Rebelle, just left to right, the same way you did just a second ago?
Yeah, so we've got the Asus Pen here. We're going to designate that with our red. Was it red?
I think we were doing black, but yeah.
Okay, we'll go black. And we're going to do wrist down. And it allows us to draw lightly, too hard, and then light again.
Okay. And then a really slow one, slow the whole time.
Okay.
Good. Okay, then with Surface Pen, this is Slim Pen 2. So Cameron's doing light pressure, heavy pressure, light pressure. Good. Okay, and let's go back to whiteboard and do that same thing one more time.
and with the Surface Pen.
All right, let's try both of those one more time. Good, and a little slower on both of them. Good, that speed is perfect. That's really good. Yeah, because you can see the pen tip and you can see where the line is moving away on its own. Because there's supposed to be some stabilization that happens when you go faster in almost all the programs.
Yeah, and it feels like the Asus Pen definitely, like you can see the red Surface Pen has quite a bit more jitters, at least more obvious jitters to my eye.
Yeah, I think it's a good notch better with the which pen? What is it called?
They call it the Asus Pen 2.0,
Yeah, that's it.
and the model number is SA203H. There's a lot of actually different model numbers as I was trying to find this pen, so
Yeah,
that's probably good information.
it
It also has a different pen layout, button layout. It does retain this button for
okay,
like Bluetooth. When you're connected, you can have it do actions.
right.
But the eraser button is this right one, and then your alt button is the left one.
Yeah, now
So it's a bit different than Surface Pen.
looks really big, but that's probably because it's next to Slim Pen 2, which is really short. Does it feel big, or does it feel like a pretty normal size pen?
It's I mean it's larger than a pencil.
Mhm.
So it does feel bigger than other pens that I've used, but I'm so used to the Slim Pen 2 that
Yeah,
maybe I'm a little skewed still
and
on
there's
that.
no magnetic attachment on that one, right?
Unfortunately, no. There's nowhere to put this other than in your bag.
Yeah, that'll be a big drawback, I think, for a lot of people. And there's no magnetic points on the tablet. Can you zoom to the far away, the desk view?
So yeah, there's a couple magnetic points that the Slim Pen definitely connects to on the Z13. So for example, up here, the kind of magnets for the keyboard cover, and that actually almost has a notch for it, but it won't go into the notch because the magnet's so strong. But that's actually pretty strong, although it is most top portion.
Yeah.
And then on the side as well, you can get it to stick really nicely right there.
Okay.
As far as the back of the device, the X13 had a spot that it would stick to, and this isn't as strong, but yeah, you can see that just it would stick on the X13. Let's see if we can find another little spot here.
What about the
One right there on the kickstand.
okay, and then if
So
you take the keyboard off, I use mine without the keyboard connected most of the time. Can you try where where the keyboard connects? Like right
yeah, so if you
over the pogo pins, does it connect there at all?
yeah, so right there, and yeah, actually right on the pogo pin, there's a pretty strong connection point right there.
Okay. Can you yeah, set it there and then shake it a little bit?
It's connecting stronger on one end than the other, so it does get a little bit of
Yeah,
a spin, but it's on there pretty good. Like if you were
okay,
not,
well
I mean,
that's
you
not
won't want
bad.
to put it in your bag like that, but it would
Right.
definitely stay on there if you wanted to like use the device and then
The
do something, set it back on.
yeah, the Slim Pen 2 has different magnetic alignment than some of the other stylus. So It's possible one of the other stylus would magnetically align 2 points instead of 1. Okay, so there
Yeah.
is some option there.
Yeah. In fact, these edges are stronger than the center. Right here is really strong.
Mm-hmm.
In
And
fact,
just
that's really not going anywhere.
okay. So for clarity, if anyone's watching this thinking of using the Slim Pen 2 with this, it is not recommended at all. There's no place to charge it, and it's not the best option by any means. So, do you have other stylus there?
Yeah, let me grab one. Give me just a second.
Do you have more than one other type?
I have a bamboo and I have a Surface Pen original.
Okay. I like your secret lab pillow.
Yeah, it's really nice actually.
Yeah. Yeah, you
That
can't
one's
tell. I have a pillow behind my head right now.
All right, so I've got a couple other pens here. This is the Lenovo Precision Pen, and it's if we use tried in those same spots, it's round and it does connect down there pretty tightly, but again, it's usually stronger on one. There's like a magnetic point here
Mm-hmm.
and then a lighter one here. So when it does connect, it's kind of like in one spot versus
Yeah.
the others. But it is a strong connection point if you're using it without.
Yeah. Can you show on the back again that spot before?
On the back. So there, I felt like there was a spot right here. But the Slim Pen would stick right here, but this one's
Right.
not. I can feel the magnet, but it's not strong enough to hold it.
Yeah.
But the Slim Pen, it does
Right.
rest on it.
Yeah, the Slim Pen is like 2/3 the weight. Super light.
Yeah, and then I've got a regular Surface Pen here. Let's see how that does.
The ice blue one.
That, yep, that actually almost notches into the keyboard cover. That's actually on there pretty good.
Okay.
On both sides, it looks like too, and in the center, and then on the back, it wants to kind of stick, but it won't. And oh, we got a little piece right here by the camera that'll stick to. Not quite as strong as you would
Right.
want though. But if you were just setting it there while you did something else and then reached back to grab it, it would hold it.
Can you quickly show the line quality on those? Are those? I assume the Surface one's
Yeah.
probably got battery. I don't know about the other one.
Yeah, I think we'll see what they do. This Lenovo one might be using a different protocol.
Yeah, it could
It
be.
does switch between them, but it's kind of complicated to get it to do it. But let's try the Surface Pen and see if it has battery.
Look at that line.
That's actually pretty good.
Yeah, it's like better than the other two.
Wow. Yeah,
Can you do
that actually feels really nice.
Can you do blue?
Let me undo that and do it in blue. Yeah. So regular Surface, but that's actually really surprising.
Yeah, there's some pretty heavy differences between. Look at that. Holy cow.
Wow. Yeah, this worked
That's
really well.
yeah, really buttery. Huh. All right, then back into whiteboard. Oh yeah, that's the way to go right there. Yeah,
Yeah. What's interesting is I can't draw quite as light with it. Well, maybe if I try hard, I can. But
yeah.
it's just
The pressure levels for Surface Pens is notoriously set high. But if there's do you have a Surface app? Can you download the Surface app?
what's funny is like see what it does.
You might need to pair it for it to see the pen. Basics. We're men.
No, I don't want my Surface headphones on. No, thank you. There we go.
Yeah.
Like that. Okay, let's try the Surface. Hey,
All right,
check
that
it
looks
out.
good.
So yeah, settings.
Okay, but no pressure doesn't look like. Okay, so that would have to just be done in app, as far as we know.
Yeah.
Okay, if we find out something different, we'll put it in the comments or the description of the video. All right, let's talk about the gaming part.
So here is some performance metrics that I have in here. The yellow is usually the X13 in the Surface Laptop Studio. The yellow designates the 3050 Ti.
Okay,
These are time spy scores right here.
okay,
So that's what we're looking at right now. You can see that it's the Surface Laptop Studio is surprisingly low on time spies because even the 40-watt X13 usually beats out the Surface Laptop Studio. But you get into the 4050, 4070. The 4070 is just really high up there. It's basically on par with like 3070s on a much larger and bigger devices.
right.
So if we look at it, some of these benchmarks here, and maybe I can zoom that in so we can see that just a little bit better.
Okay.
The interesting thing to me is this table right here. These are the watts being used on the device. So something like the Surface Laptop Studio is basically on this orange curve of
Okay.
performance, and it's right at 50 watts, so you're about right there.
Yeah.
And this is just one benchmark. So this is time spy that we're looking at. Something like the Surface Laptop Studio is right here at 50 watts on this orange curve. And when you bump up to the Z13, not only is it more than 50 watts, they give you a little bit a bump there. It's a 65 watt GPU. So with the 4050, you'd actually move from this point on the curve to this point on the curve, and then 4060 a little bit higher, 4070 a little bit higher. That's just time spy alone. But also, if you compare these different versions, you can see that the 4050 is actually really close to 4060 and 4070 as you move up the watt scale.
Right.
Like some people don't realize that a lot of times when you have a 4070 and a 4060, or even a 3070 and a 3060, you might be like, well, the 3070 is way better, but sometimes you might have like maybe an 80 watt 3070 and there's a 3060 that's at 100 watts and it's outperforming it. It's because things kind of move linearly
Right. Yeah.
up
Makes
the
sense.
scale. But so that's why it's important to note the wattage as we move up, and that's why these
Right.
graphs are a little bit different than things you might see in other places that just say, "Hey, here's a 3050, here's its score." It's like, well, here's a
Yes.
3050, and here's its score across wattage levels.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I think that's something that people don't understand. So,
Yeah, and go ahead.
so for an average gamer who's not super into specs, basically what this means, and you were saying this on your video, is that on battery power, you're getting some pretty incredible performance. Can you talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, so let's look at that just in terms of the time spy here. Let me switch back there. So on the time spy, the 25 watt 4050 was actually silent mode. There's different modes you can drop the laptop into. That so 25 is on silent mode. The 35 is on battery,
Okay.
and the balanced mode is kind of between 45 and 50, and
Okay.
then the 65 watt is the turbo mode.
Okay. Got it.
Now, if you're going to be gaming, you probably just want in turbo mode if you're plugged into power or whatever.
Right. Right.
But it's interesting because last gen's Z13 was a 3050, and basically its performance was just super low. I mean, when you're on silent, you wouldn't even run a game on silent.
Right.
And so the point that I made in one of my videos was the last gen Z13 what on its maximum turbo mode, which was probably right around here, is still slower than the new Z13, which is this purple line, even when A, it's not plugged into power, or B, in silent mode. So the silent mode is as good as the turbo mode of last year, and even much better. So that's kind of an interesting
Yeah.
take on it.
So not only can you play it without a fan at the same performance as last year, but it's consuming less wattage, which means that you could play on battery. You could play significantly longer than you could in the past. Because I know, like, if I try and game in anything I've ever owned on battery, it was like an hour, maybe an hour and a
Max.
half. Yeah,
Yeah.
max. And so this changes that, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to really getting into a hardcore game, you probably still want to be plugged in, but maybe you're running off of like a power bank or something,
Right.
and you're still portable. But yeah, you could, if you had it in silent mode, I'd have to do the math on it, but you'd run it probably at least an hour and a half on this current version. So that's really good compared to what we've seen in the past. In fact, if you're going to be running any games at all, it's probably more efficient. These chips are so efficient. It's
Hmm.
probably just as efficient to leave the heavy GPU on, uh, because it's just that good and that efficient in that 25-watt mode. You're going to have better performance, and you're probably going to use less power than even the iGPU.
Wow. Yeah, that's actually really significant. So having a because this
The 65-watt area is right where the Z13 models kind of play into each other. And then you can see, like in this benchmark, they're all pretty stacked, pretty close to each other. They're all
hmm
very close to the same curve. You might get an extra,
okay. I understand.
jumping from a 4050 to a 4060 to a 4070 at that
Hmm.
60-watt range. There is some gains to be had there,
Right.
but performance is pretty close. They did a good job, uh, in terms of keeping the 4050. They tried to nerf it. It's it's like they tried to make it worse than it was,
Right. So
because they
people would
only gave it a 96 bit bus, which normally it's much bigger than that, and they kept the specs almost exactly the same as the 3050 Ti, other than they did give it 6 gigabytes of RAM rather than 4 gigabytes of RAM.
right, which I
But
appreciate.
it's still, yeah, absolutely. And I was looking at our video we did with Surface Book 2 predictions, and I
Hmm.
think we basically said, we were talking about 40 series GPUs, and it was even better than what we were predicting, 20-30% uplift. Like, yes,
Right.
it was about 20 to 30% uplift, but what they gave us with the Z13 and the X13 that's coming out is they gave us an extra 15 watts on that GPU, which made the bump even greater, like 40,
Right.
50% better between generations, which is really cool. But where I was going with this is, I've got a few more benchmarks here. You can just see the groupings. Here's our 4050 in
Hmm.
superposition versus a 4060 and 4070.
Yeah.
They're actually closer together in some of these benchmarks than they are in the Time Spy.
Yeah. And I'm
Um,
going to point something out here because I didn't understand this until just a couple seconds ago. This is multiple devices. That means the Z13 is not doing the 100 and the 120 scores.
no, it's
120 watt.
not.
That's a different machine
It's all here
entirely.
at the 65 where
Yeah.
the Z13
So
is.
all the grouping over there is the limitations of this version of the mobile processor at this wattage.
Yes, and
Got it. Okay.
this dot, and this dot are actually all the Z13, but they're just at, like, this is on silent mode, and this is
Mm-hmm.
on performance mode, and this is on turbo mode.
Got it. Okay.
So, and then we've got Firestrike over here. Even less of a difference. All of these are really close. I mean, if you were just sitting there looking at your computer, you wouldn't notice a difference between the 4070 and the 4050 in these tests, most
Yeah.
likely. Same with Final Fantasy 15 benchmark results. This one actually has one of the biggest spreads that we've seen, and I'm not quite sure exactly why that is.
Mm-hmm.
It might be because I actually don't have. Oh, sorry. No, sorry. The colors changed. The 3050 is now purple here. So my bad there.
Yeah.
Should have prepped these a little better. So the 4050, this blue line, and the 4070 is up here. So
got it.
So yeah, bunch of different benchmarks here, but and this is what I said in my video talking to everyone else choosing between 4050 and 4070 on the Z13 and probably the X13 as well, is that 4050 is so good. There's, unless you're really wanting to, unless you absolutely need the maximum amount of performance, there's almost no reason to pay extra for it if all you're going to be doing is, you know, pretty heavy gaming. But and yeah, even the DLSS3 features that are out there on these 40 series make a huge difference. They have that new like AI. It's basically it's frame multiplication because it doubles up frames using AI to kind of make things more seamless, and it actually works really well. So it gives you really high. Yeah, I mean, you can run full resolution Cyberpunk on these devices without those features enabled, almost at really high settings, and it does fine with all those new features. So it's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah. Okay, so I have a unique question. Do you know anything about the teardown? Because they have 32 gigs of RAM in the one version and 16 in another. I would be interested because if you just had 4050 and 32 gigs of RAM, I think that would still be a very compelling upgrade. So that might be worth exploration.
I think what's going on here is the PC and notebook market has slowed down quite a bit now that not everybody's like, everyone rushed to go work at home and they all wanted new devices so they could work from home effectively. And now we're getting not quite as much work at home, but what we're seeing is a pretty massive drop off in PC sales and notebook sales. And I don't think it's a fade. I think we just had this massive peak and everyone already has their devices. We're going to slow down here for a little bit. So they have to be careful about the number of variants that they offer. So they try to like hit certain price points, feature set points. And it sucks because, I mean, back in the day, you just go on Dell and you'd be like, oh, I want, this many gigs of RAM. I want this processor. You could just totally boutique customize your laptop. And Asus, for whatever reason, doesn't like to do that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So teardown video with Cameron sometime soon. On the Z13.
So I was able to. It does have this. Let me switch my camera here. So it does have a slot very similar to the Surface Pro 9 right here, where you can swap out the SSD, which I actually did, and dropped a 2 terabyte version in it, which is pretty fun.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and take a look at actual gaming performance. Yeah, depending on how this goes, is probably going to be if I buy it or not. By the way, my Surface Laptop Studio 2 terabyte model is for sale. Okay.
Okay, you ready?
Yep, I'm ready. This was a great game, by the way. I love the series. Yeah. Have you played Horizon Zero Dawn?
I haven't. I've been meaning to get around to it because it does look really cool.
It's absolutely worth that. That would probably be the main one I'd be playing. Holy crap!
Pretty crazy, right?
Yeah. That's like easily double the FPS of the 3050 Ti.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Wow.
In fact, I'm gonna pull. I think I have some pre-done benchmarks already I'll let you know the score on the 4070 because I do have that on hand.
Okay. All right, so my shipping address is
I
wow.
mean, the cool thing is the X13 and the Z13 last gen, they had that 120 hertz display,
Mm-hmm.
but it it had ghosting really bad. It was basically like as good as a 90 hertz display
Mm-hmm.
because of the ghosting. But these new they call them Nebula displays, Nebula HDR.
Right.
Um, they are fantastic, and the persistence is really good. Like you look like you're looking through a window at the game rather than a screen. It's really cool.
Wow. Ah, such a beautiful game
Yeah,
for how old it is. And it's what, like 4 or 5 years old now.
yeah. I still use it for all my HDR testing on monitors and stuff too. It's
I like jungle scenes in everything. Now that FPS difference is just insane. When I
yeah,
was
it's crazy.
yeah watching your review on the 4050 and then the 4070, and your visible excitement was very compelling. I'm like, oh no, I'm gonna buy something. Yeah, you need to try. You need to try Horizon Zero Dawn. It's really good and it's
Is that
fun.
on Microsoft? Is that a game?
It's on
What's that game?
Steam
Sorry.
now.
Okay.
It didn't used to be, and there's a new one, Forbidden West, which is like the. Um, I don't feel like the graphics are significantly better, but the original one was just so good, and it's really cool artwork too, like the style of the design and everything. Wow, that guy must work out.
Yeah, the colors are actually picking up really well on camera there too.
Yeah, Surface Laptop Studio is not an HDR display, although it's supposed to handle or support HDR video. HDR, not HDR video, HDR something. Games. HDR games, but not HDR video. Wow. Okay.
So, looks like we got an average of 126 with a peak of 201 and a min of 107.
Crazy. Can you click on the
What?
graphics tab?
Sure.
Middle top.
Oh,
Yeah, just so that when I'm doing this, I can show the same things. Okay, cool.
yeah. What would you guess the 4070 got?
The 4070, um,
Yeah.
from the charts, like looks like a 15 to 20% increase. So maybe 145 average and peak like 230.
Yeah, that's actually pretty close. So 151 average, a peak of 253, and a min of 128. So that's
That's
about
that's crazy.
what? It's like maybe 19%. So it's not as big as some of the other benches that I
Hmm.
did. But here's the thing: it's like you're going from 126 to 150. It's like, are you going to notice that? It's like
Right.
that.
Yeah, the
That's
human
that's what
eye.
I mean when I'm just like that 4050 is so good. So
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I remember going from 30 FPS gaming and then hitting 60 and going, ooh, the enjoyment of the game is wildly different at this frame rate. Like everything is so fast and responsive that it's far more playable, enjoyable. It feels much like there's certain games I played at 30 FPS and I'm like, yeah, this isn't fun. And then you play it at 60 and you're like, oh no, this is a good game.
yeah, it's crazy, and it's funny because like there's some games on the Switch that for some reason 30's fine, but a lot
Yeah.
of PC games that I played, it's just like playing at 60 plus, like, has ruined me when the screen actually does 60 plus, whether that's 90 or 120.
Right.
It's just, man, it just feels so good. I don't know
Yep.
what that is, but
Totally agree. At some point, how long it will game on battery power. Maybe with
okay.
like the 3050 Ti performance that you were talking about, but on battery power.
Yeah.
So like, can you game for 3 hours on battery power? That would be,
You know what? Let's let's find out. We're already like doing so many different things that you already have a good editing job in front of you. So
yeah.
we'll we know that it's a 56 watt hour battery. So if you can gauge the watts that it is using, you can basically do the calculation if you know what it's using at any given point in time,
Okay.
and make a pretty close calculation.
Silly me. I've been actually just playing games for hours, telling people I had to for work.
Looks like I already have it installed.
Yelling at the kids, "You can eat tomorrow. I'm working."
All right, so we have our battery voltage, remaining capacity, charge level, wear level. Okay, so I just unplugged it, and we can see that it's using, just sitting here, 15 watts. Keep in mind the GPU is turned on.
Wow.
So we're, and our battery's not full, but when you
Right.
unplug it, it automatically forces you to performance mode, which uses about 40 watts on the GPU. But if we move it to silent, that's going to actually limit the GPU to 25 watts.
Yeah, and this is going to perform the same way as the Surface Laptop Studio plugged in.
Probably. So let's leave this up, and I'll run Shadow the Tomb Raider in windowed mode, and we can kind of see
Oh, I see.
what this level goes to.
Yeah.
And we can just go basically, well, we can run the benchmark, but just the menus in Shadow the Tomb Raider are already very intensive because it's like already rendering the game basically. So we can kind of get a feel.
Right, because we're not looking at. Actually, can we do in full screen mode the benchmark again in silent mode? It'd be really interesting, I think, to see
Sure.
the plugged in, unplugged difference.
Okay, so just to get a feel right now, it's using about 32 watts in total.
Okay.
So I'll run that benchmark, and then we can talk about what that probably means for battery life.
Okay.
So let's run the benchmark silent mode. And I'm going to do a calculation. So basically, if we take 56 watt hour battery and divide it by, what did I say, 33, 35 watts?
Something like that, yeah.
So if it's 35 watts that it's using, that's 1.6 hours that it would run in the silent mode. Playing a game, obviously, which is pretty crazy, because if you were actually running as fast in the performance mode and battery, a 56 watt hour battery, it'd probably be using at least 55 watts. You're getting 1 hour basically,
Yeah, this is right here. This is about the performance. I think it's like 60 to 70 FPS plugged in on the laptop studio. Yeah, you can see a little bit of the difference. Just not so buttery.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is the laptop studio would be using 80 to 100 watts while doing it as well.
Yeah.
Well, this is way down at 30, 35-ish.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about what technologies need to change for this to dramatically improve. And, it's like one or two components at this point and the game changes completely. You get a higher capacity battery and things change dramatically.
Yeah, and in fact, so if the Surface Laptop Studio does end up with the 4060, I don't know if you saw that news, but the Laptop Studio 2, there's been test units that have been seen with the 4060 in them,
Mm-hmm.
which will be a massive increase in performance when that actually does get released, whenever that might be.
Yeah, October-ish.
Yeah. But also, I used to, people always used to talk about, oh, there'll be thin clients everywhere, and then cloud will do the rendering. You know,
Mm,
there's been that
yeah,
concept, but I think we're just a few generations away from, thin hardware can be so good that you don't need to do the cloud rendering, because cloud rendering has so many issues in terms of latency and compression
yeah,
artifacts and needing an internet connection, that
right.
how cool will it be when any device is just powerful enough to render whatever graphics you want it to render, because we've
Mm-hmm.
reached a plateau.
Yeah, and I think the GPUs, mobile GPUs are there now. And so it's
Yeah.
really just a battery issue at this point, and maybe a size issue a little bit. But depending
Yeah.
on the capacity and the compression or the size of the battery itself.
Yeah, a couple more iterations, and pretty much, I mean, this is the 4050, which is technically their lowest level entry
Mm-hmm.
into
Mm-hmm.
graphics, and it's just so good. It's like you almost don't need anything better than it in a lot of cases.
Right. Yeah, we'll never go outside again.
Yeah.
And I'm still waiting for a brighter screen. Like I have, okay, 55 average.
Yeah, so my Laptop Studio benchmark database says that Laptop Studio full bore 66. So
66, yeah. This is without a fan
yeah, I
at
mean it does kick
third.
on slowly if it uses too much power,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like you can't hear it.
Right. Yeah, this is still very playable. Yeah, and any portable battery that you're using should be able to handle that pretty well.
Yeah, so if you have, like, for example, this is operating at about 35 watts that we saw. So say you had, I've got this right here. This is an Anker uh,
Wow, that's beastie.
737, kind of beastly. But I think it's I'm gonna, I don't know. I have battery banks about that size that are 100 watt hours. You lose a little bit of efficiency when you convert it to your laptop. So say you have 80 watt hours.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a battery bank that's an 80 watt hour bank, divide that by 35, that's giving you 2 hours and change, 2 hours and 15 minutes from having just a small battery bank that you could carry with you, which is going to, and that's for gaming. Like if you're just
Right.
using like whatever, like web browsing or just basic note taking, the battery's going to last a long time.
Right. Yeah. You could successfully ignore your relatives for 4, 5, 6 hours if needed.
Without a power cord. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
there you go.
working.
I don't know, so the Z13 is a really unique device. It basically is a Surface Pro, but the added benefit of it's like a Surface Pro Pro because it has
Mm-hmm.
all the NVIDIA GPU in it that the regular one doesn't have. It is chunkier. It's a little bit heavier than something like that, and that's why I say it's not the best tablet. Surface Pro 9 feels really great in your hands.
Right.
But this generation made some improvements. It's got rounder edges. They removed the bump off the back. It feels
Mm-hmm.
quite a bit better as a tablet, but you can't argue with that performance if you're a creative professional that
Right.
wants pen support, wants portability, and wants to play some games every once in a while. It's just a perfect device for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm becoming a bigger and bigger fan. Size wise, what size is the screen? 13.3?
It is a 13.5-inch screen.
Okay.
And I actually, I can, I'd have to run in the other room, but I do have a Surface Laptop Studio that we could compare it against too.
Oh, yeah.
This is my wife's Surface Laptop Studio. She's also a big fan. And the Z13, when you put it up next to it, is fairly close. However, let me get that really straight on so we can see it properly. There we go.
Okay. That's great, actually.
Yeah, it's a nice size.
Yeah.
So one thing I didn't realize about the Laptop Studio is it's not just a 14-inch screen; it's a 14.4-inch screen.
Right.
So yeah. But yeah, in tablet mode, pretty light. If you compare the screen out, we've got.
And this is a 16 by 10, not 3 by 2, right?
Correct.
Yeah, which is a little unfortunate in my opinion, but
It's great that they moved to at least 16:10 because everything used to be 16:9 and it was just awful.
right.
16:10 is way better, and 3.2 is ideal.
Yeah, that's my feeling too. I really am happy that they took the bump off the back too, because that was actually really
Absolutely.
annoying to
Yeah.
me. Like how you lay it down and you feel like you're possibly breaking or damaging something every time.
Yeah, there was no way to lay it down like this,
And there's
and it
no
was weird even in your bag.
there's no function to the window in the back. It's just a cool feature, right?
It does RGB, so it actually is kind of cool when you charge it because when you have it plugged in, it will actually
Oh,
see it
okay.
flashed red there,
Yeah.
and then when it's fully charged, I think it turns blue like that. When it's charging, it does red.
Oh, okay.
So
So it
there are
does.
some minor notification features.
Okay. All right. So you on your channel you talked about wanting a X16 versus a Z13 and possibly switching over to that. Can you talk about that a little bit? Why is it more appealing to have the larger X16?
Yeah, so the X16, there's a couple things. Last generation, I really like the X13, but I moved into an X16 just because the performance wasn't quite there on the X13. And it still had tablet features. It still had the note taking with the pen. But yeah, I wanted that little bit extra graphical bump, and that's why I went with the X16. And it is a clamshell that converts over like Yoga on the X16.
Yeah.
So, and I say this a lot. And in fact, I have an X13 here as well. This is the same thing as the X16, except the smaller form. So,
Right.
yeah, the X16 and the X13 they work like regular notebooks. If you are using the keyboard a lot, maybe you're a programmer, maybe you if you have emphasis on keyboard mouse but still want pen capability, that's where the X16 and the X13 shine.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know if I answered that clearly, but
Yeah. So one of the things you mentioned in your video is using the Z13 on your lap and using the Z13 acronym on your lap. Both of those, just like a Surface Pro, it uses that kickstand, which really is not a great lap experience.
yeah, and I'll show you this. The Z13 conventional is actually better for lap use
Mm-hmm.
because if you look at this kickstand, you have a lot of surface area. If you look at the Z13 acronym edition, you've got these knives poking into your thighs. So like it's like it's gonna hurt someone, I'm pretty sure.
You have to
It's
get.
great on a table,
Mm-hmm.
and it's great because it's angled and it makes it so you can rest it and it can be in portrait mode.
Right.
So that's kind of nice, but I really wish they just left this filled in because it's really not very comfortable in a lap unless you're using a lap board or something like that.
Yeah, and your legs have to be spaced appropriately. Like
Exactly.
you can't.
You're already so limited with the kickstand when you want to like use it in
Mm-hmm.
keyboard mode that it's not too bad. Like Surface Pro I've used a lot of years and it's fine. You can kind of get used to it. But it's because you have a lot of areas that you could be resting on, and when they take that away from you, it really limits you.
Yeah. I have some back and neck issues, and so I end up sitting with my legs crossed most of the time because it relieves some pressure. Will not work. Doesn't work. So
Yeah.
just to be clear for anyone who's looking at it, it is very much like the Surface Pro in that way.
Yeah, another thing that's kind of neat about this design is because of that window cutout, they do have this cutout right here, and it actually serves as a pretty decent handle when you want to like grip it and even
Yeah.
hold it like this. Like this is not going to slip out of your hands at all if like this, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. One additional thing, we spent so much time on the pen and the graphics. Additional thing that I really like about the Z13 is it has a micro SD card slot. Microsoft, why did you remove that? It was such a
it's so
disappointment.
funny because they did us the favor of giving us the ability to access the SSD, and at the same time they took the SD card slot away on the Surface Pro. So
Yeah, but it's there, and you can game off of a micro SD card. Like,
absolutely, they're so
very
fast
well.
now.
Yeah. All right, so if you guys want to see a full dive into the Z13, both the 4050 and the 4070 version acronym, then jump over to Cameron's channel. We'll put the link to that video right in the description here, so you can find it easily, and subscribe to his channel because he does a great job. Cameron, you do a great job on
Thanks.
your content. I'm a fan and a subscriber. All right, Cameron, thank you so much for this. I really appreciate it. We'll be doing
Absolutely.
some more videos in the future, so keep your eyes on the channel, and we'll see you in the next video.